This is the Magnetic Resonator Piano. It's an acoustic grand piano, but it's more than that. Inside the piano are electromagnets that make the strings vibrate without the piano hammers. And that means that you can have notes that grow from silence, notes that sustain indefinitely, that bend in pitch, that change timbres, that play different harmonics. And all of this is done acoustically without speakers.
I think of it as flying or skating, because you can explore sounds that are just not possible on a regular piano. So it's like you're sort of living some sort of a lucid dream where you get to extend resonances.
Sometimes I describe them as very watery sounds. They can be very ambient, very atmospheric. Sometimes you can play it just like an organ.
So the start of the setup is to put electromagnets inside the piano. You need one magnet for each note of the instrument, and then amplifier boards that connect to the magnets to power them. There's also a scanner that goes on the keyboard. The scanner measures the continuous angle of each of the keys, and that's how a lot of the subtle techniques work, by way of little subtle key manipulations. There's a lot of different techniques available. Of course, you can play the piano as normal and the hammers hit the strings, but you can do a lot of other things. As long as you hold the keys down, the notes will continue sustaining like an organ. You can also bring in the keys very gradually, and in doing that, you have notes that crescendo from silence. You can get that same kind of effect by using a volume pedal that is on the floor next to the piano. You can play harmonics by shaking the key very lightly.
As pianists, we're so used to this attack decay of a note. We play a note, and then no matter what we do, it disappears gradually. And this way I can extend it and shape it and do interesting things with it.
Another technique is a kind of aftertouch effect, where if you really lean into the keys, that extra pressure on the keys makes the notes get a bit brighter in timbre. You can also play individual harmonics on each of the strings. There's a different mode that the keyboard can be put in. You press one key first, and that chooses which string you're going to play on. And then each additional key that you press controls one of the harmonics of that initial note. And this is pretty interesting for getting different kinds of natural tuning effects, because the harmonic series is not tuned the same way that the equal temperament of the piano is normally tuned.
My general role is to set it up and then work alongside the artists to figure out the best kind of sounds for the event. So that can take 2 to 3 hours to just do the initial setup, but then depending on the project and the needs of the project, we can spend a lot of time workshopping together, coming up with new techniques, having a lot of feedback with Andrew as well, but also just between the artists and the project.
I think the most important thing about the Magnetic Resonator Piano is that it's acoustic. There aren't any speakers. All of the sound is produced by the strings, by the soundboard of the piano. So it picks up the kind of natural acoustic qualities of each piano that it goes into. And so it also sounds a bit different in every piano that it goes into. And so long sustained notes have a kind of more lively quality than they might on a lot of synths, because it is actually the strings in the piano that are vibrating. Other things that it does well are the kind of finding the space between the keys on the piano. These kind of bendy effects where you discover sounds that are there in the strings of the piano, but we normally wouldn't hear them when the hammers strike the strings. The MRP can also be used to play traditional music. Of course, it's not designed to replace the piano, but if you go back to earlier eras, keyboard music wasn't written for the modern piano either, and that music can potentially be reinterpreted with the MRP.